Hello, everyone. My name is Murray Drinkwalter, and welcome to the first in a series of presentations designed to promote the Lakeshore Football Officials Association as we embark on a recruiting campaign to recruit new officials. We are looking for women and men, teenagers and adults to join our organization. The Lakeshore Football Officials Organization was founded in 1963 and is responsible for officiating all the community and high school football in the regions of Peel, Halton, and Niagara. For our first interview in this series, we're very happy to have this individual with us. And I'm going to have to read all this because it's quite a lengthy resume. This gentleman has been a member of the Lakeshore Football Officials Association for 48 years. He was an on-field official in the Canadian Football League for 30 years and officiated 557 football games. For the past 11 years, he's been in the command center as a replay official and has been there for 620 games. This gentleman has officiated 15 Grey Cups. He has been the head referee for 12 of those 15 Grey Cups. In 2004, he was inducted into the Burlington Central High School Sports Hall of Fame with Tony Gabriel and Floyd Cooper, who was another CFL official. In 2013, he was inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And in 2019, he was inducted into the Burlington Sports Hall of Fame. Now, the only way to introduce this guy is for me to tell you a little story. Him and I, a couple of years back, were refereeing a football game at Nelson High School one afternoon, and the opposing team was Central. It was a junior high school game. I was a head referee, and as custom is, we introduced the crew to the captains at center field. I got around and I said, "Gentlemen, your head linesman today is Jake Ireland." Well, captain number 22 for Burlington Central High School looks at me and says, "Not the Jake Ireland." And today we have the Jake Ireland. Jake, welcome. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate you doing this for us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Jake, first of all, let's get at it. When, how, and why did you get involved in football officiating with Lakeshore 40 some odd years ago?
Well, it was almost by accident, like most things in life. I had been helping out skating in the Burlington Minor Football Association flag, and I did that for 5 or 6 years, 7 maybe. Anyways, I actually didn't solicit or look for Lakeshore. They found me. The referee in chief at that time phoned me and said, "We are desperate for guys to help us out for the tackle minor football in Burlington." He says, "I've heard that you do flag games, and maybe you could get some yourself and some of your fellow officials to come out and help us do the line of scrimmage in these Pee-wee and Bantam games." He says, "You don't have to buy a uniform, just bring your flag and your whistle and your hat and come out and help us out because we're really desperate." Well, after 2 or 3 games of doing that, I realized this is what I want to do. This is easier than flag football. And I've got a good feel for this game as I think the guys I'm working with, I want to give it a try. So the next year, I actually joined Lakeshore and started doing high school games. Totally by accident.
That's pretty awesome. How did being a member of Lakeshore over the years assist in your advancement to the CFL?
Well, I mean, in countless ways. First of all, right from my first high school game, the senior guys were extremely helpful in little pointers, the little stuff in the game that you don't even appreciate until you get out there and do it. And some very competent senior officials were always willing to give you a little helping hand and give you pointers, and it helped immensely. Once I got involved, of course, with Lakeshore a little more deeply, it was at a time when Lakeshore had developed a relationship with the CFL for the first time. And I got an opportunity to officiate in my first junior conference game with the Burlington Braves when a CFL scout happened to be there to
Wow.
evaluate two other officials who had been recommended through the CFL. And I don't know what it was. At the time, I weighed about 194 pounds, had an afro red hair that stuck out under my hat. So I looked like Bozo the Clown on the field. I wore thick glasses. But when the report came back to Lakeshore, it said, a real comer. Like, I don't know what this CFL supervisor saw underneath that costume, but there was something he liked. So
God.
the next year, through Lakeshore's work, I got on the stick crew in Hamilton for CFL games. And so Lakeshore football got me involved, got me promoted, instructed me, and provided me with the opportunity to get a sniff at the CFL. So the Lakeshore has been, everything in terms of my career in the CFL.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jake, how important is it for guys like you and I? We're tenured officials. How important is it for us to assist in the development of those younger people that may want to officiate?
It's automatic. It's mandatory. It's simple. And most of the guys who are at the senior level, who are competent officials, they want to help. They don't have to be told to help. They want to help. I mean, it's part of football officiating. The performance of you as an individual, as an official, is the performance of the team. Always. It's more important than your own personal performance.
Yeah.
So, like I said, for my very first game, I was told little things about whistle control, sideline coverage, what the right color shoelaces were to wear, which I had to be told in my first game in high school. So, from the trivial to the consequential, it's important, and it's always been that way.
Okay, so take yourself. You still do a lot of high school stuff and a lot of minor stuff for us. So take yourself to a Thursday afternoon on a high school football field. You're out there with a less experienced official. What are you going to do to make that newbie, that new official, comfortable?
Number one, talk to him. Instruct him gently. Show support. You're not out there to be his boss. You're out there to be his crewmate, and try and do everything you can to make him feel part of the crew. And the primary thing there is communication during timeouts. When you're close to him, insulating him from the bench if you can, if you know what I mean.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean.
During a timeout, call him over and talk to him. Get him away from the bench if he happens to be there. Trying to make him feel comfortable. Don't try and instruct too much until the game is over, except for little things. Little things that, like when he's marking the ball out of bounds and he says, got his eyeballs glued to his toe on the sideline, and you tell him that's not that important. Make sure you're watching out of bounds. Little stuff and little nudges, shall we say? And tell him to not worry about the rules in terms of application of rules, like I said. Worry about the conduct of the players in terms of legality of what they're doing. Observe what they're doing, determine whether it's a foul or not. Don't worry about the application. There are other guys who can sort that out.
Yeah, we want them to focus around the stuff around the football.
Exactly.
Yeah. In your opinion, what qualities are expected of a new official, and what advice would you give to someone who thinks they may be interested in joining Lakeshore?
Wow. Boy, that's tough. What do I expect of that first guy, time on the field for a guy? I just expect him to listen, hustle, and ask questions. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the simplest question about what he's doing or what he should be doing. As I said before, just try and make him feel to be part of the team, part of the crew, part of the effort. And within that, all I expect is hustle, basically.
Great.
The rest has to be learned.
Yep, exactly. I agree. So listen, outside of your on-field officiating successes, what personal benefits have you been able to gather from football officiating? There's got to be some.
Well, I've been very fortunate to travel, Canada, the United States, to do football. And I've been able to work with officials from across the province, across the country, and even some from the States. So I've had the opportunity to establish lasting friendships that are still with me today. I've had an opportunity to officiate some very important games in the history of the football in Canada. So that's a blessing. I've been able to meet some celebrities, even just tossing coins. So what I've got out of football is lasting friendships, the thrill of doing something you love with people you respect and people you grow to love, the other officials.
That's perfect. If you can, you got a little comical anecdote that you could share about your interactions with a player or a coach on the field?
I thought about this a bit.
Something a little funny?
But I'll settle for a couple of cute stories because most of the really funny ones involve language that I don't usually use. And without that language, the stories lose their edge.
I understand that.
Little things, humorous incidents. One of the coaches I respect the most of all the coaches I've ever had to work for, he's in the Hall of Fame, is Don Matthews. He's coached in numerous teams in the CFL. Well, in 1990, in a preseason game in Toronto, I had been a referee at that point. That would be my 8th season in the referee's position. But we were working in some new referees in the preseason. So I was assigned a head linesman position to work with one of these referees in a preseason game. So Don Matthews that time is the coach of Toronto. So I'm lined up in front of the Toronto bench as the head linesman. And he looked at me and he said, "Jake, what the hell are you doing out here?" And I said, "Coach, I'd very much appreciate it if you get away from me and don't bother me this whole game." I said, "This is my last chance. If I don't make it here, my next position's in the stands." So he loved it. We had a good relationship.
That's cool.
And another cute one with Pepper Rogers. Don't know if you know him. He was an All-American football player. He was a college coach in the States. He coached he coached the Memphis Grizzlies 1 year.
The Memphis Grizzlies, okay.
All right. 95, the 1 year. And his career, and he was put in that position because he was well known in the area, and I wouldn't say he was a figurehead as a coach, but he was their pub guy. He was their publicity attempt.
Yep.
They gave up a safety touch, and we were lining up for a kickoff in front of his bench, and he says, "Wait a minute," he says, "I would like to free kick." I said, "No, we don't free kick in this league. You have to kick off. You can't get a free kick." And he looked at me and he says, "I've coached 500 games in my career. And I have never seen anything like this before. I've never heard of this before." And I turned to him and I said, "Coach, sometimes you have to do your 501st game to see something new." I don't think he appreciated it because he didn't laugh.
Oh, great, great, great. Jake, what's your career highlight?
One last little one.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if you remember Cal Murphy,
Yep,
longtime coach in the CFL. Towards
Winnipeg
the end of
guy.
his career, he went to Saskatchewan and finished out his career as an assistant coach. And his last year, he got bowled over in a game, seriously hurt, broken arm, and it was about 3 or 4 weeks later, I got to do a Saskatchewan game in Regina, and he's got his arm in a sling. And you have to appreciate, he was a very demonstrative coach, shall we say. He liked to, throw his headset down, and he used to wave his arms and scream and yell. And so I went over to him and said, "Coach, I'm sorry to hear about your situation." I said, "I guess with this," when I looked at his arm, I said, "I guess you've lost half your vocabulary." And he said, "That's okay, Jake. You only listen with one ear."
Ah. Oh, very cool, very cool. So what's your career highlight?
Wow. Seriously, I say this a lot and people don't believe me, but obviously induction into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame was a fairly big highlight. But as far as on the field stuff goes, being selected as a head referee in 4 consecutive Grey Cup games, I always say is number one. And number two is this guy right here. That's the Lakeshore Football Association Most Improved Official, 1976. And that's as prominently displayed as any of these balls down here in the man cave.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I got that award many years later, but you're right. It is a very prestigious award in our organization.
Right. The only problem is that when I got presented it, they suggested that I had a shot at winning it again. So I guess I still had a ways to go.
Jake, listen, thanks for this, buddy. I'm just going to tell another little Jake story before we close this. I can recall a number of years ago, I was assigned to do a high school playoff game with Jake Ireland and two other officials. And the assigner told me, make sure you put this other official as the head referee and make sure Jake goes on the side and you work the middle as the umpire. So this other official ends up reffing this game with Jake on the sides and me as his umpire. Afterwards, I don't know, you had someplace to go, so you weren't able to go back to our post-game debriefing, but me and this other official did, and we're sitting there having a beverage, and he says to me, he says, "My football career is just finished." He says, "I was a head referee, and Jake Ireland was one of my side guys today." And that just sticks in my mind. You had to see the smile on this guy's face. So Jake, thanks for this today. Your input has been very eye-opening, and I'm sure it's piqued the interest of someone out there who wants to be a football official with the Lakeshore Football Officials Association. For those of you out there that may be interested, feel free to check out our website at www.lfoa.ca. You can also find our social media links there. Or you can express your interest in officiating by sending an email to info@lfoa.ca. In the interim, stay tuned to our social media platforms for further interesting recruiting messages and interviews with other football officials, coaches, and those in the football fraternity. And be prepared to get off the sidelines and into the action and be a football referee. Say yes to officiating.